Welcome to Reversing Hashimoto Show. I'm your show host, Dr. Anshul Gupta, the world expert in Hashimoto's disease. I help people reverse their thyroid conditions by making personalized functional medicine plans. You can work with me with any part of the country now by making virtual functional medicine appointments. To book an appointment, look at the show notes. In this show, I am going to get experts from all over the world who are going to share latest information that will help you to reclaim your life back from dreadful thyroid disease. So welcome here. And we have with us Dr. Wendie Trubow with us. Welcome.
Thanks, Anshul. Great to be here.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for having you over here. Let me introduce you first. So Dr. Wendie Trubow, MD, MBA, is a passionate about helping women optimize their health and lives as a functional medicine gynecologist. Through her struggles with mold and metal toxicity, celiac disease, and other health issues, Dr. Wendie has developed a deep sense of compassion and expertise for what her patients are facing. She is a co-author of Dirty Girl, Ditch the Toxins, Look Great, and Feel Freaking Amazing. Wow. Dr. Wendie, welcome over here again.
Thanks so much, Anshul. Feel free to call me Wendie. We have more colleagues.
Yes, no, I mean, I'm so passionate about toxins, so I'm looking forward to having a great discussion because there is so much to talk about. Obviously, we cannot cover everything today, but at least we will get a good snapshot of why people with Hashimoto's should be worrying about toxins. But let's first talk about your story because you dealt with these toxins on your own in your health journey. So can you please share that with us first?
Sure. So I think we need to start sort of prepping you by saying, I have the worst genetics possible, pretty much. So I have 2 copies of the MTHFR gene, which means that part of my phase 2 detox where you help get rid of your hormones and methylate and take things that are toxic and make them less toxic, I'm not so good at. So that's one issue, but I didn't know that when I was a kid. I have 2 copies of the vitamin D deficiency gene. I have 2 copies for the celiac disease gene. So, I started out in life not knowing that I was really like hobbled, but I developed celiac probably in my early 20s, except I wasn't diagnosed until I was 35. And that really, I know people are saying, well, what does this matter? But when you have one autoimmune disease, you're at risk for others. So I was kind of surprised I didn't have Hashimoto's. It was always something I was surprised by. But part 2 of the story really starts after I spent, 14 years working on my health because I had a lot of gut dysfunction as a result of undiagnosed celiac. And by the way, I went in a stressful career and I had 4 children and we own our own business. And so you pile on all these stressors, and stressors, as we can get to, are really, really bad for detoxification and balance. I'll just say that. That's like a take-home message. Stress is bad. Try to mitigate it. So I really hit the skids when I was 48, turning 49. I knew, it's so funny, it's hard to treat yourself. I knew I had a lead exposure, and then I kind of just forgot about it. So my neighbor took his house down, and it was a post-war 1940s house, and we knew it had lead paint. And our houses are 15 feet apart at best. They're like right on top of each other. So he took his house down and I'm freaking out. I'm like, shut the windows. Oh my God, it's crazy. And I really kind of promptly forgot about it. And I didn't make the connection when my hair started falling out. And then I finally got my hairdresser to agree, yes, your hair really is falling out. And then fast forward a few months, we went to Notre Dame. We went to France right after Notre Dame burned, and it was super dusty. And the month after I came home, I gained almost 10 pounds. My hair loss accelerated to just a ridiculous rate. And I had a rash on my face that would not quit. And now I'm really freaking out because what perimenopausal woman wants to gain almost 10 pounds? Nobody. I mean, nobody wants to gain 10 pounds and have their hair fall out. So I was really going crazy. And as a functional medicine provider, I'm like, I'm going to figure this out, right? It's really hard to treat yourself. But I did all the testing. I did the gut testing. I checked my thyroid, checked my hormones, because I was like, well, it's just perimenopause, right? Nope, not my hormones, not my thyroid hormones, not my adrenals. And about 3 months later, I heard on the radio that when Notre Dame burned, it released 500 tons of lead into the air.
Oh my God.
Right. And we were right there. And by the way, the closer you were and the longer you spent there, the more lead you got. And we spent a week right there. And then that's when I went off the cliff. And I said to my husband, I got a lead exposure. We all did, but I can't really cope with yours because I'm a mess. We need to deal with mine. So I did the testing and my lead levels were 25% higher than they had previously been. And they were just over the cusp previously. And I blew it off. Remember, doctors are bad patients. I have a hard time treating myself. And I didn't recognize then how significant it was. So I didn't treat the lead when it was just over positive, but now it was definitely positive. So I treated it and simultaneously looked at, well, what are the other toxins? So there's mycotoxins, which are the toxins that mold strains put out when they're living in you. They make you pretty sick. I had 4 of those. And then in for a penny, in for a pound, I tested the other environmental toxins and had a whole slew of them, like nail polish, the chemicals in nail polish, which was heartbreaking because I took great pride in doing my nails and having amazing, pristine nails that I did myself. That went out the window, and high levels of gasoline fume additives. So I stopped pumping my own gas. And one day when I got all this data, I looked at my husband, I said, I am such a dirty girl. And then I said, that's the book we're going to write. And that's how the book came to be, because, we've really spent so many years trying to be healthy, and we don't eat gluten because of the celiac, and I don't eat sugar because of it's like the devil. I don't eat sugar. And so we've spent all this time trying to be healthy. And yet this thing that really destroyed my health was so invisible to me and everyone around us. So I spent the last 3 years really working very hard on toxins, and it's made a difference. I thought my energy was good. Now it's better. My hair is growing back. My rash is better. I lost my weight. It's all those things about what's my daily life like that has really transformed. And all while being perimenopausal, which is cruel and unusual punishment unto itself.
Oh, yes. I think a lot of the females who are listening over here would kind of correlate with you, because a lot of your symptoms, hair issues, weight issues, skin problems, all of those things, are part and parcel of Hashimoto's. And a lot of females continue to suffer, and they have this question, why? So absolutely, it makes absolute sense. So have you seen a correlation between Hashimoto's and toxins? Why?
100%. Sorry to interrupt you, Anjali. Yeah,
Right. And so you have seen the correlation between the Hashimoto's and toxins, right?
Yep. Sum it over. That's it. There's correlation.
No,
yeah, 100%. Because they function like this underlying cause of inflammation. And so, my inflammation showed up as fatigue and hair loss and rash and weight gain. Other people's inflammation shows up as an autoimmune disease. And the most common ones include Hashimoto's. That's just rampant. And so when you track back, when you say, okay, you're doing everything right. I can't tell you how many people sit in the chair across from me and say, I have a thyroid problem. And I dutifully check because, sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't have a straight thyroid problem. They have a toxins problem. And so it really does underpin a lot of chronic illness, especially autoimmune disease.
Absolutely. So, toxins is a big word, right? And a lot of people get lost. What do you mean by toxins, right? So tell us a little bit more about it so people have an idea of what are we talking about when we talk about toxins.
So there's a huge range. So let's look at the self-inflicted one. So stress, self-talk, negative relationships, toxic relationships. We don't often think of our stress as a toxin, but what happens when, and I'll come back to the actual toxins, but when we're in a state of stress, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. That's an adrenal issue. When the adrenals are jacked up and in the state of fight, flight, or freeze, they say to the liver and the gut, guys, a lion is about to eat us. So right now, it is not a priority to do your normal thing. And for the liver, the normal thing is get rid of things that we're exposed to so it doesn't build up in our body, i.e. get rid of toxins. And then the gut is responsible for most of the time getting those toxins out of us. So the adrenals are super powerful. And they're like, no, we're not doing that right now. It's not a priority because we're going to be eaten Avoiding being eaten is 10 times more important, 100 times more important than all the other stuff you think you need to do. So it shuts down detox, it shuts down digestion, it shuts down absorption. So any state that causes stress, that is, I have 3 podcasts today. I need to have my face on and I need to dress nice and make my hair good. That's a place of stress that can be negative. Then there's relationship or self-talk. If you're in a relationship that's unhealthy for you, it is causing your body to be unhealthy. It's because that stress is shutting down the normal processes. And then those things we say to ourselves, even as simple as, I think that guy's going to hit me while driving, sets off the cascade of adrenal. So all of these things we're bombarded with. And now, you and I are living in a time when we're coming out of a global pandemic. We're watching this war unfold in Eastern Europe. And these things are all in our psyche and very stressful. So one huge toxin is stress, but let's set that one to the side because we actually have a huge amount of control over that one sometimes, most of the time. The next area that we would define as toxins are things in the environment that are harming us. And you'll notice I don't necessarily say something that is made by some other company. So things that are definitely toxins or toxicants are heavy metals. That's typically lead, mercury, cadmium, thallium, arsenic. These are the metals we're exposed to. Then there's mycotoxins, which are often from some type of water damage or moldy food. Coffee's a big culprit. Grains are a big culprit. And I'll come back to all the other culprits. But then things like if you have too much of something you think is a good thing, like, for example, as a celiac, no amount of gluten is safe for me. But until I got diagnosed, bread was just part of my life. So that was serving as a toxin because that was creating a state of inflammation and dysfunction that took a while to recover from. So then you expand into beauty products, furniture, cleaning products, construction products. All of those often have endocrine disruptors in them, gut dysfunction, things that make your body work harder. So it's really a huge category. Air quality, water quality, how close do you live to a highway? Do you drive a car? There's all these layers to this. So starting there, and then there's a lot of sources that we have control over, but it's tremendous. Pretty much anywhere you look, unpack a new computer, you're getting exposed to chemicals.
Right. So, but majority of patients, when we see them, they have this question, well, everybody is getting exposed to toxins. So why are they bothering only me?
Right. So that's where it goes back to your uniqueness. And when I started this conversation, I said, I started my life hobbled by my genetic things that I wasn't aware of. So it is really hard to see, like sometimes I look at my husband, who I call him strong like bull. I think people fall into 2 categories. They're strong like bull. They can take pretty much anything until they really, really fall off a cliff. And then there's me, strong like mouse. I can't take very much before I fall off the cliff. So a lot of that comes back to genetics. My husband's genetics are pretty good overall. Mine are terrible. I have terrible detox genetics. I have the MTHFR2 mutations. As we've talked about, all of this builds up. So when you're looking at your uniqueness, how you were born, whether you were born via a vaginal delivery or a C-section, that matters for your microbiome. Whether you were breast or bottle fed, that matters for your microbiome. Your microbiome is determining whether you're secreting enough serotonin, whether you're anxious or whether you're depressed. This is all determined in our gut. So when you start to look at it, I don't know that it's necessarily useful to say, why me? The useful question that I say to people is, given that it's you, what can we do to mitigate it? Because you have control over what's occurring for you. Why me is going to send you into a sort of powerless victim stance. And what really, really is impactful is you can change this. This is modifiable. Can I eat gluten? Nope. Can't eat gluten. Can I do okay if I get exposed to a little bit? Nope. I'm super sick. But I can mitigate all the other stuff, just as people can mitigate their Hashimoto's and tone it down, decrease it, reverse it with taking away all the things that are causing people to be out of balance.
I like that attitude. I think, like a lot of people are into that sick attitude, as you said, okay, well, I'm the victim and I just have to suffer through this. But instead, if they change the attitude where you said, okay, well, there are things you can do to get better. That's where we need to focus. So I definitely like that attitude. The
Yeah,
other thing which
100%.
a lot of these, toxin companies actually tell is that, well, yes, you get exposed to toxins, but very small amounts. But we all know that, how that can play a role. So talk a little bit about it, like how these small amounts over the course of time can cause problems.
Okay. I love this question because it like burns my butt, makes me want to drag. It's like nails down a chalkboard. So think about it. If you were exposed to one toxin at tiny amounts, and that's the only thing you were exposed to for the whole year, sure, you could deal with it. But most people, by the time they've left their house in the morning, they've been exposed to somewhere between 100 and 250 toxicants, depending on what kind of bed they're sleeping on. So a lot of beds are treated with flame retardants, which are endocrine disruptors. So read thyroid. Whenever I say endocrine disruptor, you can hear thyroid. So the bed you're sleeping on, if you're using different types of detergents and then the scents and the chemicals in that, you're sleeping on that, rubbing that all over your body, your face, the rest of your body. So by the time you've even gotten out of bed, you've been exposed to toxins. And then you get in the shower, you wash your hair, you condition your hair, you wash your body. That's at least 3 more products with a countless range of potential toxins in them. And then you do your facial routine, you shave, put your aftershave on, your facial products, do your hair, but keep your hair in place. All of these places. Oh, and by the way, I live in the Northeast. It's dry, got a lotion. All these products have endocrine disruptors in them or other problems, but particularly endocrine disrupting issues. And remember, endocrine disrupting means thyroid issues. So by the time you've even left the house in the morning, you've been exposed to up to 250 different chemicals. And say your cleaners came the night before and your house has that nice, fresh, clean smell. That's chemicals. And those chemicals are not good for you. So piling it on is never good. So when you say to the company, sure, it's a little amount, but it's, if you have 1,000 drops, you're still going to fill up your pot or your rain barrel. So 100,000 drops of rain, you're going to fill up the rain barrel and start to have symptoms. And we don't have an easy exit spout just to say, oh, drain it out. So, and the other problem with that is that a lot of chemicals come on the market and they don't have to prove that they're safe. They have to prove that they're not doing harm directly. It's a much different thing. Safety is very different than direct harm. So if they can show they're not directly harming anyone, they don't have to prove it's safe. Well, there's a lot of room for what might be unsafe for you or me versus fine for someone else. So given the human variability and our uniqueness. So my response would be, yeah, maybe for those companies, but the sheer number of things we're exposed to negates that.
Absolutely. And again, I believe that, the big incidence or prevalence we are seeing in autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's in the last decade, toxins has a very big role to it, particularly like, increasing the incidence. So, like that way it tells us that as we are pumping more and more chemicals in the environment, it doesn't definitely help our body.
Yeah. And I say to people, you're circling the drain here. So you're eating food from soil that's been depleted. And then you eat, so the nutrient value isn't necessarily as good. And you're eating a lot more processed food, which means you're getting different chemicals, and processed food in and of itself converts much easier to sugar. So it then messes up your microbiome, which then messes up your detox. It's like a domino effect. Mm-hmm. And so all these things play a role, and they're all impactable, but it takes focus.
Right. So how does these toxins basically lead to Hashimoto's, if in general terms, so that people can understand how they're affecting their body?
Yeah. So anything that your body's interpreting as a toxin or toxicant starts this cascade where it creates inflammation. And when your body starts to experience inflammation, every human is going to manifest that differently. But if you look at the broad buckets of chronic fatigue, gut dysfunction, autoimmune disease, cardiometabolic, so that is cardiovascular disease or metabolic, prediabetes, diabetes, insulin resistance. So those 4 buckets could kind of capture 95% of people. So because so many people are exposed to all these toxins and they build up, as they build up, they make you more inflamed. And here's this awful side effect: as you get toxin exposure, if your liver is impaired in its phase 2, let's back up a step. Your liver is responsible for doing a ton of this work to get rid of your toxins. By the way, hormones can be a toxin, and your liver is responsible for processing that too. Alcohol is a toxin. All these things that your body's exposed to, your liver is pole position to take care of these things. So say you're like me and you have 2 copies of the MTHFR genetic mutation and you're not the best at methylating. So what that means is you're not someone who may do well with exogenous hormones because you can't process them. There's about 6 different pathways that the liver goes down in phase 2, but I was backing up. So when your liver sees a toxin, in phase 1, it takes something that's often somewhat inert and makes it more toxic. It's called a toxic intermediate. It's a little unclear why our livers do this, but it does. Now, phase 1 is reasonably quick. Phase 2, you take that toxic intermediate and either bind it to a methyl group, a sulfur group, you take glutathione and process it. You do a bunch of different things to make it water soluble and not toxic. Now, this bound thing, I think of it like a barbell, it goes into your gut for you to poop out. And you have this lovely enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, which comes around and separates these toxins from their binders. And now your body's like, whoa, toxic intermediate that's not water soluble, puts it right back in the bloodstream. And the bloodstream's like, oh, I just dealt with you. Why don't you go hang out in the fat for a little bit until I can cope with you? Because I'm busy, right? I have other things I'm dealing with on phase 2. I'm busy. I can't get to that right now. So you put it in your fat. So this is when people sit and say, I'm doing everything right and I can't lose any weight. And then we go back to toxins. So these create a state of inflammation that many bodies interpret as danger and start to cause inflammation, and inflammation leads to an autoimmune reaction. That's just, and then I'm hoping you don't say to me, how does that happen? Because it's not really clear yet how exactly that happens.
Oh, I think that's great explanation. Like I think a lot of people, just want to understand, okay, well, why these toxins are affecting their body. So I think that's a great explanation of like looking at the inflammation piece of it. And each and every person with Hashimoto's has inflammation as an underlying cause. So this absolutely makes sense. So the next question most people have is that how do I test for toxins? Because, that's a very, again, I would say controversial topic. Like, what is the best test for the toxins? So why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So let's talk about what not to do. Well, you can do, but it's not very effective. So this is where I'll plug. It's important to see a functional medicine provider because they have the access to tests that are going to drill into the data. The more conventional testing is looking at whether you've had a recent exposure. So if you're in construction and you took a house down, you might be able to see something in a lead level, but probably not. Because what happens is, if we go back to that pathway that we just discussed, where if your body can't process it, it puts it in your fat. This is not, your body recognizes that all these toxins are very, very harmful. So you are not going to be letting it just stroll around in your bloodstream. It gets sequestered away in your fat and your bones, by the way. So for testing, blood testing is often not effective because it's showing an immediate acute exposure, which most of us haven't had. We've had that, one drip problem over time. So blood testing is not effective. What I usually recommend and use in my practice is urine testing. We get really down and dirty with all the testing, right? There's stool testing, which is poop. That's not for toxins. But then the toxins, we do a lot of urine testing. So it's important to do a baseline test because that's also giving the feedback that there's no acute exposure we need to worry about, especially for metals. And then you do a provoked test. So you take a substance called DMSA and it binds to the metals, pulls them out, and you start to get a read on what's there. It's almost never true. It's almost always underestimating what's really there, because the problem is that you have these toxins because your detox was somewhat impaired in the first place. So if you're storing these toxins, the liver's like, not ready to show it all. It's just not showing its cards. So you won't see the true number until you start to ramp up your liver's ability to get rid of it. But urine is a fantastic way to test for heavy metals, mycotoxins, environmental toxins, and pesticides, particularly glyphosate. So we use urine for all of those.
That's great. Yeah, that's what we do in our practice too, using the urine, because as you mentioned, blood, is not the best way of checking, your overall toxins. And unfortunately, we don't even have a blood test to check for mycotoxins or environmental
Right.
toxins. So
Right.
it is not an option.
Right.
So the good part is that, these tests are available, but it is only through functional medicine doctors. So if you go to a regular doctor, they might not have any idea about it. So don't even mention them, because they are totally going to kind of say that, oh, no, don't fall for these things. But we know that these tests have been there in the market for a long time, and they have been, used by a lot of functional medicine MDs like you. So we
they've
know
been validated.
Exactly.
I mean, to the best of our ability to locate the mycotoxins, it's been validated. It's horrifying, but yeah, it is there. You can see it.
Yes, great. Well, so we spoke about how toxins affect you. We spoke about how we can test them. So now let's talk about what people can do once they know that, okay, they have toxins, or they suspect that they have been exposed to these toxins. Can they do anything?
This is my favorite part. Yes. You can totally control the narrative here. Yes. So I'm so happy you asked that, Anshul, because let's start with, you can always stop exposing yourself to toxins. And this is actually why we created our companion guide to the book. It's a non-toxic guide to healthy living, because most of the time when you start this conversation and really start to say, okay, here's all the sources, people look like a deer in the headlights after about 3 minutes. They're like, because they go in their head about, I need to deal with, there's all these things they need to deal with. So the first thing I'm going to say is, have some grace for yourself. This is a lifelong, worldwide process that we're all going to engage in. And you can do it in a community, you can do it in a group, you can do it alone, you can do it with a coach, but have grace. I've been doing this for 3 years, focused. I still screw things up. Okay. So what you want to start to do is, first, make sure that you've addressed what I'll call the foundations in life, that your gut is balanced, that you're eating a healthy way that works in your body. And notice I didn't say diet, because that implies something temporary, that you really found your groove around food, that you sleep at night, that you move your body regularly, that you're not a stress ball, that you have relationships that work for you. That's the foundation. Now, anytime you want, you can start to turn your attention to toxins. And how we do that is start with the things you're putting in your body. I characterize it. What are you putting in your body? What products are you putting on your body, and what's around you? Because that's an easy way to think about it. And then as you're running out of things, the things you put in your body is pretty simple, right? Alcohol, water, drinks, food. Pretty straightforward. Aim for minimally processed, organic. And then for water's like the most critical part of that. And try to minimize your alcohol, because it is a toxin. But water is really critical, because you want to try to get water that's A, clean, and B, not in plastic water bottles, because the plastic water bottles are an endocrine disruptor. Remember, thyroid disruptor. So we want to avoid things that are just piling on stress for the body. So no more plastic water bottles, no more drinking sugar. So kombucha, 16 to 24 grams of sugar in a serving. Don't do that to yourself. Okay. And it always comes in a plastic water bottle. So eliminate the plastic water bottles. Then, and I don't know if you've noticed during this talk, I'm drinking from a glass water bottle. You can do glass, you can do stainless steel. So handle your liquid and your food. Then what are you putting on your body? Now, it's pretty likely that a lot of things you're putting on your body have endocrine disruptors in them. So pick the thing that you're running out of. I happen to be low on lotion. I was like, oh, I got to order another one. The Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, has vetted all of these products, and they rate things like 1 to 10. So what you're going to want to do is look for something that's a 1, 2, or preferably a 1 or 2, but 3 if you need to. Take the product you're using, look it up. Maybe you hit the jackpot. I've hit the jackpot on like 3 products. I was pretty psyched. So look it up. If you didn't hit the jackpot, then you go and same site, stay on the environmental working group, and now search for that type of product. I just heard that Amazon and EWG have a collaboration where they'll show products that are EWG certified, which is so fantastic. So if that's true, we'll figure that out. That means you can go on Amazon and it'll show you, oh, this is a product that EWG has certified as being non-toxic. So you want to look for these non-toxic things. And as you run out, replace it. So for women, that includes all of your beauty products. My favorite company is called Beauty Counter because they have a whole no list of over 2,000 chemicals that they won't use. And they're EWG certified. So that's, bonus. And they have everything from base, under eye cover up, makeup, lipstick, blush, anything. They have everything. So that's fantastic for women's care. And then maybe you're due for lotion. Again, go to EWG. So, but go slowly, right? You don't have to fix everything overnight. You just have to fix one thing as you run out. And as you run out, level up. And then turn your attention to, what are you cleaning your house with? What are the things that you're spraying on your floor? What are the things that you clean your windows or your counters with? What are you washing your clothes with and your dishes? Let's make sure each of those categories is clean. And then also what's around you. Are you someone who, well, let me tell you, I have a patient who has really high levels of glyphosate, and she's 17. And I said to her, do you guys have a landscaper who sprays the yard? And she says, well, my dad's the landscaper and he loves his green yard and he sprays all kinds of stuff on it. And I said to him, you got a lot of issues, physical issues, especially for a 17-year-old. I think it's time to ask your dad if he likes his green lawn or his daughter more. And the daughter and the mother were both on the phone, and they both at the same time said, oh, he likes the lawn more. No question. Right. So they were joking, but I said, it's a really big source of exposure. If your landscaper or you are spraying something to kill weeds on your nice green lawn, you're being exposed to glyphosate, which is the most commonly used herbicide in the world. And it's associated with cancer. It's associated with microbiome disruption. It's not good for you. So start to pull off these different sources one by one. And again, I think of it in, on, around. To me, that makes sense because and by the way, you're going to be greenwashed. Greenwashing is what companies do to make it look like it's clean lines, all natural, minimally processed. Well, if it's minimally processed, it's still processed. So watch out for greenwashing because I've been snookered a whole bunch of times. And then, there's things that are legacy, meaning I grew up with this certain cleaner and I never questioned it. And then about a year ago, I went, that cleaner is not clean. That cleaner is like as far from clean as we can get. But I grew up with it and I just associated it with that's how your house should be. So it's questioning even the things that you think are normal because, we all have blind spots. And that was one for me. So the bottom line is be systematic, pick the thing you're running out of and have grace when you screw it up. When I realized my cleaning product was bad, I was like, whoops, time to level up.
Oh, absolutely. I think each and every one of us, kind of screw up this thing at some point or the other. Me and my wife keep looking at products, and even though we are just again scrutinizing everything, but somehow, these things will sneak up and you'll say, okay, well, it did. That's okay. Let's just kind of find a better one. So I think, you brought a very important point is that just don't be hard on yourself. It's a process, it's going to take some time, a lot of effort is needed. So start somewhere and start slow and then just slowly do it.
Yeah. Over the course of, it's so funny. My husband, my husband, he took on the food shopping for our house and he's really taken it on. It was amazing. He's really taken it on. However, there's always glitches when you have a new system. And so he shows up with the most beautiful berries I have ever seen. And I took a look at the package and I said, honey, this is not organic. These are not organic berries. And he said, well, they were a lot more expensive. and I said to him, you're right. It is more expensive to buy organic. However, you need to start to look at this like you're either going to pay more for food that keeps you healthy, or you're going to pay your money for things that deal with your chronic illness. And I would much rather, since we have 4 people who were growing and developing, let's feed them food that's amazing so we don't have to untangle them in 20, 30 years. And he was like, all right, when you put it like that, I got it. And then of course, in true Wendie fashion, I said to him, you may not show up with those ever again. He was like, fine, I got it. Because he has a good sense of humor about it.
Oh,
But
yes.
it's really about picking your battles and have a sense of humor. I was like, I can't believe you brought that. We're like the poster children for healthy living. How could you buy that? And he was like, oops, never again though. He hasn't done it. So pick something that's important to you and just address that. And again, you're going to mess it up. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I ate the blueberries, right? I'm like, I'm not going to waste those now, because now we've compounded it. We're going to eat them, and I'll just do extra time in the sauna tonight.
I know. Yes. So I also want to kind of, pick something over here in terms of there are a lot of detox protocols which are available online, and people will just go generally and start doing them. And a lot of times they will come back and, they will be in a big mess. So
Yeah.
talk about that, why, like people should not be just doing a detox without a provider.
Yeah, 100%. So there's so many layers to this question. So the first thing that I think I would distinguish is doing a juice fast is a reset. And you will have maybe some detox reactions, but it is not a detox. It is a reset. And if you need that to get off coffee, to kick a sugar habit, to redo your eating plan, that's totally fine. But when you're doing detox protocols, a lot of them, especially if they're online, they want you to rave about them. So they want to show quick results. Now, quick results means that what happens if you're detoxing truly, you are pulling these toxins out, you're binding to them, and you're excreting them, either peeing or pooping them out. But if you have a huge rush of toxins that get released because you go on a crazy diet and you lose 15 pounds in the course of a week and a half or 2 weeks, because your fat cells are storing all of your toxins, all these toxins got released into your bloodstream. And now your body's like, oh my God, what do I have to deal with? And it really floods the system. It can make you really sick. So I'm not at all a fan of that, because I believe, one, the process isn't meant to torture you. It's meant to make you feel better. Yes, there are inevitably times when you might feel fatigued or have a little bit of gut irritability or not feel your best when you're removing these toxins. But slow is 20 times better than fast in these cases, because when you flood the system, then you jack up all the other problems. So if your thyroid had been quieting down because you were dealing with inflammation, and now your whole body's inflamed again. So it's really unhealthy for people to do it like that. I always recommend, first of all, get your data, right? What are you treating? Let's tailor the treatment to the problem, and then let's adjust it so that you feel good during the process. You should not feel like a truck ran over you during the process. And if you are, we need to back it down. I say to people, if you don't feel well, I can tolerate a little bit of that. But if you feel awful, call me. We'll fix it. It shouldn't be that way. So
Absolutely.
these things they snowball, right? Like,
Right.
oh, no pain, no gain. I should suffer. Nope. I reject that. You should feel pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean, again, yes, like so many people that come to see me also, well, I thought, the detox means that, I'll be just on my pot, sitting on my pot the whole day, or I'll be just miserable in my bed the whole day. I said, absolutely no. If you are having those reactions, that means it's not good for your body. You should be telling your provider about those things. And that's exactly the reason, that is, if you're working on a full blown detox, you should not be doing it on your own, because like it can backfire things, it can be dangerous also. So working with somebody like you, who knows how to detoxify properly is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Great. Gosh, we have covered so much topic, and I know this, I can just keep going asking you questions, but I think we're running out of time. So anything, as a parting way that, you want to share with us that we have not covered, that you want to share with our folks?
Sure. I mean, this is my passion play. This is what we're all about. So we wrote a book about it called Dirty Girl, Ditch the Toxins, Look Great, and Feel Freaking Amazing, because you can do this. Like, we say you can do this, and we believe in you. So we wrote the book so you can have a roadmap, and then we put together, and that's available on Amazon. Don't type in Dirty Girl. don't do that. You're not going to get my book. You're going to get something else. Type in Dirty Girl Detox or Dirty Girl Trubow. You'll get to the book. And then we also put together a companion guide for non-toxic living, because people really do struggle with like, what's a good pot to buy and what's a good makeup brand. So we put it all in a document after doing the research. And that's available on our website, which is 5journeys.com/promo. It's a free guide. Just put your email in. We'll send you the PDF. And that will help you get started, right? Like, let's start the process somewhere. And I think the thing that I really want to leave people with is you can do this. Yes, it's totally overwhelming when you're standing at the base of the mountain. Don't look up. Just look straight ahead at where you're going. You can do this. You've got this.
Awesome. I think those are great departing words, but tell us more where people can find you also.
Sure. I just realized as you said that, I was like, oh, I didn't tell people about us. So there's sort of two tracks. So if you want to follow me, all of the social media is Wendie Trubow, MD. And my first name is spelled funny because I changed it when I was 13. So it's WENDIE TRUBOW MD. And that's for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And then our company profile is 5 Journeys Health. And we also have an Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter profile for that too. And come follow both of us. We really are into living until you're 100 and feeling amazing to get there.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. That was a wealth of information that you shared with our folks. I'm really thankful for coming over here with us.
My pleasure, Anshul. Thank you so much for having me. And to your listeners, you've got this. Let's get started.